Let's talk about it. The show where we talk about every single topic that comes under the sun and the moon and every discernible landing platform in between. I'm Sudakshina, and this is our pilot episode. Let's talk about adulting. When I was 9, adult looked like my parents. At 14, adult looked like getting out of my hometown and settling down in a new city. And as a 20-year-old, adult has come to mean something new and strange. Because as it turns out, I have been adulting for quite some time without even realizing it. And as it often comes with age, growing older and steeping deeper into adulting has made me realize how often our mental health goes unnoticed or even deteriorates because we are going through that transition phase, let's say, of teens to young adults. As a young adult, you're facing all kinds of pressures. There are new expectations and responsibilities, and you're transitioning into new roles. And you also understand that all of this change can have an impact on your mental health. Whether you're grappling with anxiety or depression, wondering where you fit in life, things can be quite complex when you are in your 20s. And most often, when you're lying in your bed at 2 a.m. and overthinking every single thing you've ever said or you have ever done in your entire life, the only thing you really want to do at that very moment is talk to somebody. Somebody who can calm you down, answer your questions, and solve all your problems. A fairy godmother of sorts, straight from Disney, into a not so perfect life. And to be very honest, despite what you might think, your friends or even your significant other can't really therapize you. And that is my cue to welcome our first ever guest to the podcast, Miss Ambika Warrier. We've been acquainted for a very brief period of time, one phone call, a few correspondences over emails, and a sum total of 60 whole minutes. And I'm already in awe of this incredible woman sitting in front of me today. Ma'am has completed her master's in clinical psychology and is the founder of Ananda Center for Counseling, Delhi. A counseling psychologist and a psychotherapist of repute, she is certified in therapies like transactional analysis, cognitive drill therapy, cognitive behavior therapy, acceptance commitment therapy, mindfulness, to name a few. She really does do it all. Miss Warrior is a career guidance and counseling expert, parenting expert, relationship consultant, couple therapist, premarital counselor, and a family therapist. Is there anything that this woman can't do? We don't think so. She's here with us today to candidly talk with us about the various ups and downs, struggles and problems that we go through while adulting and the impact that it creates on our mental health at present and in the future. Hello, ma'am. Thanks for joining us and taking out the time today to understand and analyze the lives of your average 21-ish year olds with us.
Thank you so much, Sudakshina. That was a lovely introduction, a great beginning to the entire episode that we are planning to have over here. So, very well put across. I thank you, your entire team, the person who's guiding you, and the university, the Christ deemed to be university. Thanks a lot once again for this warm welcome.
We are very, very glad to have you here. So, should we start with the very basics?
Sure.
How did you get into this field, psychology of all things?
Uh, okay. So, as I was growing up, psychology was not a subject per se. Of course, it was there. It's not that it came up one day suddenly. But to be honest, I'm a student of chemistry honors. And then eventually I started liking this field. I started liking to understand how others behave in a particular way and why they could be behaving in a particular way. And that's how I slowly got into psychology. So it was more like a magnet that was pulling me, and that kind of pushed me to do my master's in clinical psychology. So, if your mind is asking you the question, oh, can I become a psychologist even if I did not do a BA or BSc in psychology? Yes, you can, if you have the passion for it.
Does it work out in the end?
We'll figure out as we speak.
What does your typical day look like?
So my typical day looks like me waking up at 4 a.m. in the morning,
4 a.m.
Yes. And I do some prep for myself, which includes a bit of meditation, a bit of prayer, a bit of chant, bit of exercises, which comes from our age-old Ayurvedic system. It's called the Marma Chikitsa. So these are all self-sustenance systems that I do. And then I get on like a housewife, typical housewife. And then my work day begins at 9:30 in the morning. I'm in the clinic at 9:30 every morning, including Saturdays and Sundays. And then I'm back on any typical day at around 6:30. So that is what happens.
I have this very Gen Z feeling at the moment where I realize that I wake up at around 6:50 and my classes start at 8. And then I do nothing of whatever you mentioned.
That's
I just
okay.
wake up and run.
That's okay. But 6:15 to 8 is a good enough time period, I guess.
But I also sleep at 4.
That's where we need to take a corrective measure then.
Clearly a lot of things to improve on.
So that means you sleep when I wake up.
Yes,
Okay.
precisely.
Very nice.
It's a routine of sorts.
All right.
There's this very popular show on Netflix, especially within the last 3 years per se, where there's like this one average teen. He's not particularly average, but he teams up with this crazy smart classmate of theirs, and they start an underground therapy clinic of sorts to help solve their classmates' problems. And it has been working out for them because the show is a huge success. So when we came up with this idea for the podcast in the first place, we were thinking of that show. We were thinking of the great success that it had, the model that it ran on, and to be honest, I think it's still one of my top favorites. And when we ran with the idea for a podcast, we wanted to create a safe space of sorts for people to like talk about whatever needed to be talked about, but more importantly, talk about what was not being said, what was not being discussed. And when we conceptualized this episode, we did a test run on our social media handles to give people a platform to come forward and ask us, not us precisely, but like ask a professional. We'll just be the carriers, enablers, the middle guys. So I have some of the most frequently asked questions right here. So should we get into it? So one of the most popular questions that I got was that we saw on the page. How do I kickstart the conversation? How do I tell my parents ki hi, I think I'm struggling with something. Maybe I need to talk to somebody professionally, because that discussion, even in most households now till now, is kind of a tough topic to broach.
I understand the dilemma that this generation or the young adults are going through. So, young adults are the people who have crossed 19, and by the time they reach 25, that's the whole span of young adults, wherein you too fall. That's right. So, what happens is, one, we are in doubt whether to tell the parents or not. And we wait for a time and we keep waiting until it reaches the peak. And then we speak to our parents. What happens is it comes out like a lava. Suddenly there is an explosion of emotions.
Emotional breakdown.
Yes. Does that happen?
It does.
Yes.
It does with everybody, I guess.
So the best way to speak to your parents is once you are calmed down and the emotional outbreak or the outburst is less. And the best way to talk is to tell the parents what you're going through. Because when you say, like you said, hi, I'm going through a struggle, the parents are unaware of what that struggle is. And fortunately or unfortunately, I do not know how to put it as, now there are so many doctors online, so many Google doctors, so many WhatsApp doctors that we've started self-diagnosing, which could be detrimental. So before you reach the stage of self-diagnosis, that would be the time to talk to parents saying, I have an issue as to, dealing with my exams, for example. Or when my friend tells me something that is against what I wished for her or him to say, I feel very bad. So this is how you can start a conversation. So be specific, keep it crisp, keep it clear, and remember your parents always want the best for you. It's just that due to the difference of their experiences in life and the difference of your experiences in your life, the understanding may not happen exactly at the same level. But yes, they are there to help you for sure. So when you have this mindset, you will figure out words to talk to them. We do not have to go by the bookish words. Probably that's the best time to use your mother tongue and not use a, taken on loan language, whatever it may be. So I'm a person who speaks Malayalam. It's best that I talk to my parents in Malayalam because they'll be able to connect like that.
So it's a heart to heart connection and it's the best time to use that.
Yes, it has to be. I hope I answered your question to
Yes.
some extent, if not all. Great.
There's also this thing that I've noticed, even personally, that it kind of gets better with age. When you interact with your parents in school and then you move to college and you're interacting with them, you realize they haven't been the most perfect individuals, but they have definitely been good parents and they do understand you. And in the heat of the moment, like I mentioned, we are going through that transition and nobody's actually listening to each other. It kind of gets overlaid.
So, like the way you're going through transition, your parents are also going through transition. A child who was 15 years old, bubbly and all cute and coy, suddenly says, "No, mama, this is what I want." And now she's like lost as well. So, what happens is parents and children, they grow together. But what we fail to realize is, as a parent, also probably, that I'm also growing along with my son or daughter. I'm only seeing my child grow. I'm not saying that, okay, my experiences are changing as well. So, rightly, as you said, the moment you start having heart to heart open conversations, it starts getting better. And then we realize, itne bhi bure nahi hai.
Time heals everything. The second step that comes after talking to somebody is in India or even outside, seeking professional help, which is kind of costly.
So now there are a couple of aspects to it. One, the person who's going to talk to you is putting his or her entire energy while having the conversation. So let's say I'm doing a counseling session or a therapy session for someone, whoever that person may be. My entire 1 hour or 1 hour 15 minutes is completely focused upon that person. Maybe I'm not giving medicines, but it's my energy that is being given. And along with it, I need to understand what the other person is telling me. So I cannot take my client for granted. So it's not just the time, it is also the experience that is being charged for. But yes, I do agree that at times it may get costly, especially for students. So I personally do at subsidized rates for students, but then my expectation from my client is there because we give small activities to be done in between sessions and that activities need to be done. So I would not like my client taking me for granted saying, "Oh, since you're charging me less, now give me a call and remind me for a session." No, that's not acceptable. So the moment the price is sliced, there are times this happens as well. But yes, if there is anybody who wants to genuinely take a session from me, if they let me know that they are a student or he or she is a student and the reason for taking the session, I have no problem in, kind of slashing the cost. Because we are here to help everyone. But then the client should be ready to help himself or herself. That is the parameter.
It's a two-way street.
Yes.
I noticed something very, very recently. Not recently, but like when COVID struck and the pandemic was happening full force, there was this rise in telecounseling. Different state governments and authorities provided facilities for people to talk. And then, from what I've observed, there's a rise in mental health and awareness among people. So, right now, I see a lot of school kids sitting for sessions, talking to people, talking to professionals. They have a rise in the employment of school counselors, which wasn't there during the time when I was like in 5, 6, or 7. It's a new thing. So, what are your views on that? This whole remote counseling and rise in awareness?
So I too do telecounseling. So yes, it is very effective. It is pretty much as effective as a face-to-face counseling. So one good thing that has happened with telecounseling is the outreach has been far and wide. So a person who has a mobile, even on a WhatsApp call, can take session. So let's say I'm sitting today in Delhi and somebody in Odisha wants to take a session. That person doesn't have to travel. So the cost is cut and it is, like I said, equally effective. And it is nice that the awareness has increased. But at times I also see that, people, even if they don't need a session, it's become a status symbol, which is a little fearful and scary at times. But yes, rightly said, the awareness is much more, and the schools have started having counselors. In fact, we have a UGC approved university who's coming up with a certificate course in telecounseling. So this would be approved by the UGC, and then they can use it as a certificate as a telecounselor.
Is there a very wide difference between the counseling and the real life face to face sessions?
A couple of differences would be, so if you're looking at the plus points, you're at your home, you're in the comfort of your home, you're not spending money to travel, you're not spending that extra time to travel. These are the plus points. And yes, if the camera is clear, I am able to see the person's expressions very vividly. When it comes to the negative or the not so strong points, one is I may not have control to help that person while I may have that in a face-to-face session. The second thing is the client and the therapist may have some worry कि घर का कोई सुन ना ले, and technical glitches. So otherwise, I think it is pretty much good. So when I do career counseling, it's very easy for me. So I don't have to have the child and the parents in front of me. It becomes easy for them, all the three sitting together in one room and taking that session.
So technology has advanced and it is helping in all fields. Another very common question that we received was, how do I know if I'm just sad or overthinking, or if I really have a mental illness? Is it anxiety? Is it depression? Or is it just my thoughts?
Okay, so sadness is a state, and anxiety or depression is a condition. So you may ask, what's the difference between the two? You did not get your favorite pizza, you feel sad. It goes away after a little while, right?
5 minutes.
Depression, yeah, thank God, in 5 minutes it goes off. But in depression, it stays on. It needs to be diagnosed, and it needs to be diagnosed by a professional. Unfortunately, depression and anxiety have become those words which are very loosely used. So there are, certain conditions that need to be looked at. There are certain criteria that need to be fulfilled to say that, okay, I'm having depression or I'm having anxiety. So sadness is normal. It's a natural feeling for all of us to have. If that goes away, it is sadness. And for depression or anxiety, it has to stay with you for a minimum of 2 to 3 weeks. And then, the psychologist will ask you a number of questions. There is an assessment done for it. So it's better that we do not start labeling the emotions on our own only because we have access to technology. So that's where technology can hamper us a little bit.
So no Google searches.
Please do not.
Another question, which was not as common, but I like the question, so I picked it up for you, is this is a situational question. Somebody put in a situation as in they have panic attacks before every public ceremony that they have to stand for, or they have to speak in public, or maybe they have to write an exam. So is it something which can be caused by something deeper, or is it?
Yes, it's caused by something deeper.
So they should talk to a professional.
They should.
Let's talk about another very, very, very major topic discussed: eating disorders.
All right.
So we received this question again, a situational question. I'm struggling with an eating disorder at the moment, and all the influences that I see on social media are just making it worse. So how do I fix this or try to get better?
Okay, so eating disorder could be you're overeating or you're undereating. It could be that you're eating a lot and then you're trying to throw up so that you don't gain weight.
It's a wide spectrum.
Yes. So eating disorder, again, another loosely used term. So maybe, 2 days I binge eat on some sweets. That cannot be termed as eating disorder. But yes, if you turn to food for every problem, then there is an issue. So it's not the eating disorder that we fix the issue. So we need to see why this disorder came in the first place. So the disorder, the eating part is a symptom. The cause is something else. So let's say, I'm feeling sad. I eat a chocolate. I feel better due to whatever hormone is released. I'm feeling anxious. Again, I eat a chocolate. Now I need to treat the, anxious part or the fearful part and not the disorder part. Because if this is treated, the underlying problem is treated, the disorder gets taken care of. Otherwise, if indeed it is a pure disorder right from childhood or whenever, then there may be medical treatment required.
Let's talk about social media. Let's bring in the major thing in the equation. A few months ago, not a few months, but like recently, there was this trend on Instagram and it was called That Girl Trend. It started on TikTok, it came up to Instagram, it went on to YouTube. There was this whole phenomenon happening, and I'll explain to you the trend in a crux. It's a very certain criteria of people living the idealized lifestyle. They wake up at 5:30, they go out for workouts, they make something really really healthy, probably a smoothie bowl or something, they meditate, they journal, they have a very happening life. And that is something which is idealized, which for the common man or even for the average student isn't really possible. Like I said, I wake up at 6:50. It isn't possible for me to make a smoothie after that and go to class on day 1. Or the other thing, another part that went wrong was that it affected body positivity in a way. And it also spread the thing that if you're not eating the things that are really being shown in the video, you're probably not doing it right. Healthy food, extremized to a level.
So, see, we all have a particular way of life. Can we make it flexible? Yes. Do I have to follow your routine? Probably not. Can you be my inspiration? Yes, for sure. But do I have to again, follow your footsteps? Probably not. Because my body is different from your body. You may enjoy a smoothie bowl, but I may not. Maybe that gives me stomach upset.
It might.
So, yeah. So, what happens is, we are running after something which is labeled perfect. It may or may not work for me. I do not know if you have seen the videos of the famous dietitian Rujuta Divekar, Dr. Rujuta Divekar.
Some
And yes, and she very aptly puts, and this is what, the Ayurvedic system also follows, or the naturopathy system also follows. Eat what is available locally, because your body is acclimatized to it. If I'm sitting at 48 degrees in Delhi and eating cashew nuts and almonds, that's going to throw my body probably out of control after a few days. But then, since we are seeing some, idealized diet chart, we may follow it. So, learn to listen to your body, listen to your mind, listen to your heart. So, yes, of course, it's helping those people waking up at 5, having a workout regime and doing a thought journal. Yes, it's a good habit to follow. But right now, like you rightly put it, being a student, it may not be possible because you may have to study till 4 a.m. in the morning.
It's not realistic.
It may not be realistic. It's good to have that thought in mind and try to follow it in your framework. So, see, what can you do? Can you go out for a walk in the evening after college?
Yes.
Yes. So, that's one thing you can adopt. Can you sit for 5 minutes with your eyes closed and just become aware of your breathing? Yes. So, your anxiousness would go down. You'll feel peaceful and calm. So, these are little things that you can imbibe. So, one more thing I would like to add here is, Sudakshina, that we all have this FOMO.
We do.
Correct. So, whatever we do at the end of the day, we may miss out something. So, the only thing that we need to remember is, are we missing out the main things of life? If not, it's fine. The other issue we all have, and when I say we, including me, is that we want to be everywhere.
Definitely.
I want to be in the show and I want to be counseling somebody else and I want to be doing a probably panelist chat or something. It's not possible. We can do only one thing at a time. Be involved in what you do, enjoy that moment, and then move on. So, this will help you.
As you mentioned, FOMO. That's a very, very big thing right now. But that's like everybody wants to do everything, and to a certain extent, sites, social media sites, networking sites have helped us. There's LinkedIn, but there's a good side and a bad side of LinkedIn. Every time I go on LinkedIn personally, I come back feeling really sad because I see my age group, people in my age group, doing something really great. Somebody is making a rocket. What am I doing? And I'm not saying that is it right or is it wrong, because it can just be my thought process. Sometimes it can go a little crazy. But there are a lot of people who idealize on things, and the thing about social media is it might not always be genuine. It can be made up. The facts are unverified. So, what is your take on that? How do we cope with that kind of thing?
I really like this question, Sudakshina, because you asked the question and gave me the answer. You said it's not verified, it could be made up. Correct. Maybe it is not made up. So let's take that side. Do I really want to make a rocket? Should be the question that you ask yourself.
But at the same time, I'm also asking myself, am I doing enough?
Yeah, so that is your aspiration. So, what can you do to reach the top?
Aspire harder?
Correct. What is your age? What is your understanding? What is your knowledge base? We need to slowly build up. What we're trying to do is we're trying to achieve everything in one leap, and that's not possible. So I'll go back to the beginning of our chat where you were giving a lovely introduction to this whole beginning, where you said at the age of 5, adults were parents. At the age of 14, it was going out of home. At the age of 20, now you're not too sure. So if you look back, you have evolved through your age.
Definitely.
In junior KG, you learned just A to Z. Right now, using those 26 letters, you're making sentences. So, could you write those sentences when you were 4 years old?
No.
So, now when we are comparing, are we comparing apples to apples or apples to probably a jackfruit?
It's not a fair comparison.
That's right. So, when we come to that fair comparison, slowly things start falling in place. And then this FOMO would reduce. That's when we realize I'm not missing out on things that I wish to have. So it's good to have that, outlook on LinkedIn, and it's good to be on Instagram. It's good to be on Facebook or any other social media website, but use it judiciously.
So the idea is to take all of these sites with a grain of salt.
Probably more than a
More
grain. Yes.
There is still this sort of, I'll say that it has improved now, but there is still this stigma that is prevalent with mental health. There are a lot of people who don't go seek professional help for quote unquote log kya kahenge, public validation. How do you think we should approach that situation?
Yes, there is a stigma, there is a taboo, log kya kahenge, because we are unaware of what a counseling session is. We are unaware of the difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist. And maybe, some movies have had an effect on us. I'm not saying that the movies are bad, not at all. But the way we took it was in a different sense. So when we talk about mental health, or when we talk about, counseling, I would like to use this platform to tell everybody to look at it as a space where you can speak what's happening within you, which is not visible to the external world. And while I'm saying this, this also is a reason why people think twice before going to a counselor.
They do.
Because let's say, you have a bruise on your finger. It's visible, it's okay for you to go and show the doctor. But in front of a counselor, in front of a psychologist, you're opening your deepest worries, your deepest emotions that you yourself at times are not comfortable looking at. So that's when people start thinking. Now, I would like to connect this to the first question that you asked. What's the right time to talk to parents? Or how can I talk to parents? So now do you see why we keep it till the last day to talk to parents?
We do. It keeps building up, and then we are already internalizing whatever is
That's
going to be
right.
said.
And then we are living what we are thinking.
Yes.
Because we are worried to tell our parents. And when it comes to a counselor, the thought process in most people, I'm not saying everybody, is that एक तीसरे के सामने बात करना है अब. So that becomes at times overwhelming. But what they should understand is this tisra or the counselor or the professional is a neutral person. So that person will give you help in a very non-judgmental way. Because my approach to counseling is always that my client gets fine as soon as possible. And that person becomes important for me. So it's okay to slowly let go of these worries and talk to a person.
So I think we've covered the Insta section of questions, and I'll ask you a personal question if that's okay. Can you tell me about, well, not maybe exactly details, but like about a case or a patient that touched your heart, or like a patient that changed the way you see your profession?
Philosophical answer, if I may say.
Please go ahead.
So I think every patient is different. Sorry, we call them clients because they don't come with an illness, they come with an issue. So every client, let's say, there are 3 people who approached me for stage fright. Let's take the simplest of one. But each of them will have a different story. So when we understand their story, they automatically change the way you look at the profession. And then we realize, oh my God, what was this person going through all this while? And the most changing moment comes, or the aha moment, or the wow moment, or the eureka moment comes when that person starts smiling. A person who never smiled for 45 minutes suddenly starts smiling. So that's where you feel that, okay, you have done something for the community, you've done something for the person. So this is why I said, I'm ready to do pro bono or a sliding scale counseling session for students if they are sincere with their counseling, because that smile is most valuable. So all the clients do bring a change in my outlook of therapies, and especially when I do it with children and adolescents, it's a huge difference because it's their entire life in front of them. Suddenly the way they see the world, especially their own people at home, changes. So it's lovely to have that feeling.
I have always felt like psychology is a profession where like you're giving back to the society at a very grassroots level, at a very basic level. We have lots of other professions, but none of them touch people the way it does.
Now that's a very interesting statement that you have made. You're feeling that it is at a grassroots level because psychologists or the counselors or the therapists are touching people where nobody else kind of ventured into. Yes,
would like to.
It's like agar wo rone lagi to main kya karungi, kind of a question that would come.
Definitely.
Or if that person gets angry, because I've had people screaming and yelling in my chamber. I've had people pacing up and down. So I would like to look at it as they're doing that because they have that space to do. It's fine for them to do. So once that emotional outburst is over, then they start speaking. So things that may scare others, probably we are able to touch those aspects, and maybe that is why it is at grassroots levels.
I've always heard this thing from one of my friends who was studying psychology, that if somebody is crying in front of their therapist, it means they are safe enough and they feel comfortable enough to cry in front of the therapist. So is that a good thing?
Yes, it is. But then it is the therapist's duty to calm that person down as well.
If you could turn back the time and talk to maybe your 20-year-old self, what would you tell them?
My 20-year-old self.
What was your 20-year-old self like?
I think I had a good time, to be honest. It's not because we're doing a podcast. Yeah, if I could tell something to my 20-year-old, probably I would wish that I was studying in college or school for some more time. Because that was the most carefree time that we all had.
The real world is not nice.
I'm not saying the real world isn't nice, but it comes with responsibilities. As a student, the only responsibility is to study. Correct? Right now, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a therapist, I'm whatever else I am. So every walk of life comes with its own responsibility. And as we grow, the responsibilities at times increase and eventually they start decreasing. So, yes, the college or the school life, as much as we may crib while we are there, but when I look back, yes. So, would I like to change something in my 20-year-old self? No, I was happy.
But advice?
Advice to myself would have been, और थोड़ा बात कर लेती, टाइम पास कर लेती.
We are almost out of time. This was an amazing conversation. So, before we go, is there anything that we haven't covered that you would like our audience to know?
I would like to tell all the audience that be in touch with your own emotions, be in touch with your own feelings, and at times it's okay to feel what you feel. And at any point in time, if you think you need to talk to somebody, do not think about log kya kahenge. Think about aapko kaisa lag raha hai. And that is most important. Because you own the responsibility for yourself. It's not the other person. So, a professional can help you only when you take that responsibility in your hands. Otherwise, the professional is always on the other side of the table.
So, how can our listeners get in touch with you and maybe connect with you?
Listeners can get in touch with me at info@Ananda Counseling. That is AANandaCounselling.in. This is the easiest way to get in touch with me.
And with that, we've come to the end of our today's episode. Thank you, Miss Ambika, for being such a wonderful conversationalist and answering all our questions so patiently. And again, may I mention very graciously, it was an absolute delight to have you here, and we hope to have you back on the show very soon. Listeners, you can find the details that ma'am mentioned on our Instagram page.
Thank you so much, Sudakshina. You brought up many valid and most required points. It was great talking to you. You have been a wonderful host. You did a
Thank
great
you.
job, and looking forward to meeting you all again. Thanks.
Let's Talk About It is brought to you by Media and Communication Wing, Center for Social Action, NCR. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. If you're not following us yet, we are on Instagram at CSA.NCR. We'll wait for you to follow the page. Thank you once again. This is your host Sudakshina signing off, and we'll see you on the next episode.